Hi, Elisa. Hi, Max. Pleasure to have you on the Privacy Huddle today.
Thanks for having me.
Good to be here.
It's exciting because we are often remote for these, and what a pleasure to be in the Kelly Dry Podcasting Studio. Just congrats on this amazing space, Elisa.
Thank you. It is so fun to actually use the new studio and the new space.
Well, we'll be here every month. We love it. Yeah.
There we go.
Well, of course we are here because we had an amazing event this week with the Privacy State of the Union, right? Maybe our inaugural Privacy State of the Union, because I thought it was great. We might have to try it again next year.
Maybe not in a snowstorm, but
yes.
But I'm all for having
We're going to avoid the once in 10-year snowstorm next time somehow, because that is just too crazy. But it was a great event yesterday, a nice intimate setting of privacy professionals hearing from enforcers, from brand leaders, and wanted to unpack one of the key through lines from the event today with you both, Max and Lisa, because what amazed me was that we covered all these topics during the day, and in every single session we kept coming back to one topic that I didn't expect. Actually, maybe you did, Elisa, but in every session we kept coming back to children's privacy and age gating as just such a hot topic coming into 2026, and one we can expect to hear quite a bit about. So I think, given that, it's worthy of us just having a conversation about what's required and how we help brand leaders become compliant. So I'd like to start with you, Elisa. Can you talk about requirements in the U.S. when it comes to children's privacy?
Yeah, so I might even zoom out a bit, because children, right? And what do we even think of children? I think there's this hardwired, under 13, that's all we need to worry about. We have that federal COPPA standard. And the reason it was such a through line is because we have online safety. We have App Store age verification laws. We have comprehensive privacy laws that deal with certain specific considerations for children's data. So I think we're really thinking through, if you're under 13, you've got a whole number of obligations, federal and state, but you have a number of obligations that kick in if you're under 18, under 17, under 16, depending on the state. So we've got jurisdictional considerations within the U.S., depending on the age. You have some states that say you need opt-in consent from the teen, if it's a teenager, or you need opt-in consent from the parent. Mm-hmm. You have some states that say you cannot even capture consent. You just cannot collect and use information for XYZ purposes. So you need to make that level of distinction. And then you have knowledge. Knowledge fuels so much of this. And I think that's another hardwired concept where actual knowledge was such a big one. And many companies would put their terms of use to say, well, it's 18 plus, I'm good. And what the App Store laws, the concept of that is starting to share knowledge. Knowledge of what is a good question, but age signals, right? When the App Store is collecting and verifying or estimating age and then passing it to the developers, developer now has information about age of a user. It doesn't just live in isolation for the App Store laws. All these other laws we talked about, I think we really are going to be facing that challenge of, well, what do you have to do then now that you have knowledge?
Mm-hmm. I have a question.
Yes.
And not that I advocate, but if the developer still has to make an API call.
Correct.
So by not doing that, do they sidestep any of these obligations?
No. Texas's law was the first one online, and it got enjoined. So, of course, there's a lot of unknowns with what happens with these laws and litigation challenges to them. But you have an affirmative obligation as a developer, right? So there's the legal obligation of what do you have to do, and if you don't do that, is that a violation of law? But if you want the privilege of being on that App Store has requirements because it is subject to certain obligations, and your app may be kicked off. It may be, and so that obviously has serious business impact. So I don't think there's no luxury of, I don't like this is really burdensome. No, thank you.
You always see it when this stuff happens. There's someone looking for a clever, easy out.
Yes.
Sounds like we should skip that and get right to dessert.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
So we know the app stores are going to show up with APIs to allow developers to get context about the age. I've heard rumblings about other browser providers maybe doing this, but it's not clear. That's all in the context of obtaining age. We'll come to what you do with it after. But what about customers? Like I get into meetings and customers are like, I want to do age gating, which, by the way, I don't even know if that's the right terminology to use, and maybe it's already stuck. But should customers be thinking about experiences where they want to collect the age of the individual outside the App Store context?
You're on notice, right? So I think the past maybe approach was I'm 18 plus, as I said, and cover my ears, and that was good enough because COPPA was really driving that. Or couldn't be that a large part of your demographic were teens or kids for the comprehensive privacy laws. We hadn't seen enforcement on that issue yet. So there really wasn't an urgency to do something different. I think the difference here, though, is that, to your point, you can't just say, I don't want to play. So you can't just say, I'm for 18 plus. I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
You still get the API call, so you're still going to get information, and then you have an obligation if you have under 13 data signals coming in, or under 15, or depending on the state. So I just don't think you can avoid the issue. And then once you have some kind of information, we heard this, if kind of going out to the opt-out context, the idea of if you're monetizing, getting some commercial benefit out of tying identity together in different contexts, then you can't ignore the compliance component to that. You can't say, I can't tie identity together for compliance, but I can do it for advertising. We heard, that's not okay.
This did come up, and someone was very forceful about, no, my obligations are, if they're logged in, I need to do X, Y, and Z. But it sounds like that while maybe what it says, this idea that you can use it for benefit on one side, but then maybe not for the privacy obligation on the other.
So I think the real issue here is that is a moving target. We have clear enforcement on the opt-out side for the logged-in status. So that's like one lever that we know has been pushed. I don't think we know that, but I certainly think you've heard from regulators that they're watching the market, and they're watching all the press releases of XYZ identity graph and collaborations. And so the kinds of questions they ask in these subpoenas are like, what information do you collect? Who do you share it with? How do you use it? And so it becomes pretty stark when you don't have an answer on the compliance side of it. So I think it's an open question of how far they push on that and how they interpret their laws.
So knowing it's a moving target, how should brand leaders approach this from a tooling perspective, right? We had someone ask in the Privacy State of the Union yesterday, okay, well, I see 68 age-gating apps in Shopify. Which one do I get? Or do I get this with my CMP? And it sounds like maybe some of those apps won't even meet the legal requirements.
Well, I think there's this whack-a-mole. We're going back to that all over again, where give me the easy button. I want the easy button. There's not an easy button. The easy button was, I don't want to even know or have any information about under 18. That is not an option under these laws, kind of putting them all together. So then you get into what problem at different points am I trying to solve? I have to solve the App Store requirement. That means I get a signal and I have to do a specific something when I get that signal in. Then I have this other problem I have to solve of I need to comply with privacy laws, and they say I need to do certain things with data based on geography and age. So you've got some complexity there. Consent may be a part of that, but it's, we talk about that. It's not the banner as soon as you go to the website, marry me and give me all your data. It's it is time, context, consent is for the right person, for the right user, the right engagement is going to have to start playing into this.
And I'm curious, these other tools, I don't know that I did not know that there were 60 plus tools in the age context, but I for one find it hard to believe that it doesn't belong in the CMP, or that it would ever work, or there's an integration burden between whatever narrow wedge that a tool provider shows up with in the context of age. Great, I'm going to build a widget that tells you, the age band, and then what?
Right.
Well, I've got this other machinery that's controlling the nature of the data I'm collecting and using. Either those two are going to have to be integrated, or the CMPs are going to have to show up and build software to solve that problem.
Right. I think that's right. And I think when you're stitching this all together, the challenge for, let's just say, the business who's using these tools, there's not consistent transparency around what these companies are putting up. We saw with the App Store laws, the different platforms, some of them, not all, were putting out information in drips and drabs, and it kept changing. Yeah. And I think, if you get a letter by a subpoena and you have to answer it, you're now trying to comb together what information you have to be able to defend that your practices complied with the law.
Sounds brutal.
It's doable, but it's going to take time, and we're in choppy waters right now on that.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what 2026 brings us on this topic. Folks, I know you have questions, because we had a room full of people yesterday that had questions on this topic of children's privacy. So please drop them in the comments, because we'd love to keep unpacking this as the year goes on. Max and Elisa, thank you so much for chatting on it.
Good to be here.